The people of today's society always live under the supervision of the government with high technology. Now we use technology to show the modern society of Xinjiang. People lose their freedom. No hope for future. How many people in prison? Four days ago, a video showing 300 to 400 detainees handcuffed and blindfolded at a train station in Xinjiang. Now, to work out when this video was taken. Luckily, the world is full of little sundials. See this telegraph pole? It casts a shadow which is conveniently clear, sending about 8 white lines away from the pavement, and in line with or tilde foot past, where the stripes get shorter. But essentially this thread offers some techniques to verify imagery that I hope you find helpful. By verifying it, you can essentially prove that it is real and true, that what you're seeing did occur, and that its location and date is known with enough detail to make it useful. The most important clue of what we are looking at is this window. It doesn't tell the full story, but it gives us a glimpse. This is Metasploit Meterpreter in action. But we can only really see the post-exploit cleanup. It appears to be a data exfiltration to a local 46,572 port.
China has contributed to some degree to this lack of trust and general suspicion. You know, we've seen Chinese soldiers, images of them flexing their muscles in a region neighbouring Hong Kong to send a message to the protesters. We've got Chinese military rounding up hundreds of blindfolded and bound Uyghur Muslims for detention camps. A lot of people would be asking, is it smart to get more entwined with this very same Chinese military?
China is complex. There is no other way of looking at it. But we are engaged with China, and that's the fundamental judgment that was made back in 1972. It's the judgment that's been made by successive governments, which gives rise to China being our largest trading economy. That is a judgment which means that there are millions of Australians who derive financial benefit and a livelihood from our engagement with China. So that's where we're at. And therefore,
so you're talking about how to manage that better.
Well, exactly, how do we manage that better? Now, we need to have a space where we can raise human rights issues with China, and I did that, and it's critically important that we do that.
In what terms did you do that? What issues did you raise?
Well, for example, you mentioned the Uyghur issue. I mean, that is a terrible situation, and we need to be able to raise those issues, and it's important that we do that. It's also important that we have a complete assessment of the human rights record in China. You know, I don't do a speech on China without making the point that China is responsible for the single biggest alleviation out of poverty in human history. 850 million people. That's a human rights achievement. So
but China is also the country that has at the moment locked up Dr. Yang Hengjun, an Australian citizen.
Correct.
Did you raise that?
I didn't raise that specifically, but the point here is that it is a complex situation where there is good and where there is bad. But ultimately, we've made a decision to engage. We made that decision back in 1972. We continue with that now. I'm actually comfortable with that when you take the totality of the relationship. But in that context, it's important that we do continue to raise human rights issues when they arise, and it's really important that we do that.
Exclusive look inside a controversial region in China that cameras are rarely allowed to see.
That's right. The Chinese government has been accused of religious repression, rounding up 1 million people who are part of a Muslim ethnic minority and detaining them in secretive camps. Well, today's senior international correspondent Keir Simmons went there, traveling thousands of miles to bring us the story and tell us what he saw. Keir, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, guys, good morning. These are institutions that NBC News has been trying to gain access to for a year. This is a place you may not have heard of, a people, the Uyghurs, you may not know, but what you're about to hear will break your heart. Stories of families being forcibly separated and allegations China denies that it's trying to brainwash huge numbers of people into pledging allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party.
3-year-old Hamza knew his mother for only 10 days. His parents, fearing repression, fled their home in China to give birth to him in Turkey. Hamza calls out Mom when his dad shows him pictures. Holding back tears, his father says He's all his son has left.
He's just told me that Hamza's mum went back to get her other 4 boys and was arrested.
They say they were never given a reason why. Like their mom, Hamza's brothers are also missing. They are Uyghurs. The White House says more than 1 million of this mostly Muslim Chinese population have been subjected to religious persecution and sent to what it deems political indoctrination camps.
I call them concentration camps. They want to, to wipe out everything belong to Uyghur culture.
The Chinese say allegations like these are all lies. In search of the truth, we've flown to a remote region of the world, Xinjiang, more than twice the size of Texas, where horrific stories have been emerging from a vast network of secretive facilities. The Chinese, who've agreed to let us film with government chaperones, call them education and vocation centres. Here, dozens of adults sit studying, many of them sleeping in Spartan dormitories. The Chinese say these centres have helped stabilise the region. They insist we visit this exhibit, documenting decades of violent terrorist attacks allegedly planned and carried out by members of the Muslim minority. Our measures are effective, says senior Communist Party official Xu Guishang, pointing to growing tourism and increasing investment in the region. But at what cost? Prayers are only allowed at state-sanctioned mosques, and mass internments are routine for often minor infringements, according to Human Rights Watch.
Why are you here?
For attending an illegal preaching, he tells me. At another centre, Moyu, the aim sounds like a kind of mind control. The director, in a rare on-camera description, tells us they prevent terrorist thoughts from developing. We focus on changing their minds, he says. This woman, in a class teaching her to care for infants, is already a mother. She was accused of religious extremism just when her husband had died. Her daughter, only 4.
Tell me that it isn't brutal to take a mother away from her 4-year-old daughter when her father has just died. Tell me that is not a brutal thing to do.
She can go home once every week.
Her father died and her mother was taken away and could only see her once a week. And you say, that's fine.
As a parent, every one of us misses our children, says Mr. Xu.
But you have a choice to be away from your children.
Later he claims she could pass her thoughts on to her children, and her children could become terrorists. This disturbing video, which the State Department believes to be authentic, has recently emerged. Detainees shackled and blindfolded, Kashgar written on their vests. We visit a centre in Kashgar, where we're getting a sanitised picture. Analysts at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute told NBC News these images show another part of the camp just across the road from where we were standing, one that is far more punishing, with fenced exercise pens and barbed wire.
We can go across the road to the other side, where there are bars on the windows.
That is a normal school. It has nothing to do with us, he says. Back in Washington, Senator Marco Rubio has campaigned against China's Uyghur policy.
So do you believe that what the Chinese have shown us here reflects what these centres are really like?
Of course not. They control 100% this region. They control who gets to speak and who gets to say and what you get to see.
The criticism is unjust, insists Mr. Xu. We protect Uyghur culture, he says. But thousands of miles away in Istanbul, Turkey, Uyghurs who have fled tell a different story. Hamza, growing up without his mom, while his family fear his brothers have been sent to orphanages. China's Communist Party pushing for a more united country, tearing families apart.
It's astonishing to see what you saw. Even the things they're willing to show you are concerning in so many ways. What, if anything, is the U.S. government doing about this?
So Marco Rubio, who you saw there, has a bill. The House has a bill. So the president may have a bill over this Uyghur issue on his desk in the coming weeks and months. Look, this is why Americans should care. China, by many measures, is the second biggest economy in the world now. It is expanding militarily. It has huge influence. And we cannot just sleepwalk into a situation where China is so powerful in the world and we aren't asking tough questions. You know, judge a country by the way it treats its own citizens. And China really cares about what we think. I've got a personal letter here from the Chinese Communist Party official who you saw in my report, who wrote to me again to say China has always attached great importance to the protection of children's rights. You know, we were tough but fair, I think, in that report. But what we mustn't do is just allow China to act without us asking them the questions that need to be asked.
Especially when it's looking to increase its influence worldwide. Karen.